Hello everyone, and welcome to Dutch Greybeard. The Empire Trilogy by Raymond E. Feist and Janny Wurts is one of the darlings of BookTube. So far I have not come across a video that spoke in a negative way about these books, and I can clearly see why. In this video I will share with you my reading experience of this trilogy. This I will do without spoilers. The books are very accessible and they score a very high pickup ability of about 90% or even higher. They tell an intriguing story filled with political scheming and great plot twists. The characters are well balanced and their development is absolutely lifelike. The prose is alluring and beautiful at times. Also, the world building is intricate and detailed with out-of-this-world animals on 6 legs, a religious system with many gods, and unique customs and habits. We were already given a glimpse of the world of Kellerwan in the books of the Rift War saga by Raymond E. Feist. Most of that trilogy, which was published between 1982 and 1986, is set on Midkemia, the world on the other side of the mysterious rift. Both trilogies are set in the same time period, and at times the stories intertwine in a very amusing and admirable way. The male-dominated society of Tsuranwani, the empire on Kellerwan, is strongly hierarchical. The Tsurani culture is rife with rigid codes of honor and elaborate rituals. Guided by ancient traditions, the many noble families engage in ruthless power struggles. One wrong move in the eye of tradition can force someone to commit ritual suicide, which has the Japanese seppuku written all over it, the old samurai code of honor. Also, the lives of slaves and other lowly castes are considered completely worthless. The idea is that they will come back to Earth after their spin on the Wheel of Life and have a chance for a better life that time around. Servants are bound to the house they work for. When this house falls from grace or is even eliminated, the servants become lawless people. Their warriors are forced to live as outlaws and have no other choice than to become bandits in order to survive. Officers and higher-placed personnel are supposed to fall on their sword. When a warrior is hanged, which is the most shameful death imaginable, he has lost honor and will, after his next turn on the Wheel of Life, end up in a lower station, perhaps even in that of a slave. Because of these beliefs, no one in Tsuranwani has any empathy for slaves. In short, it is a harsh world where death and violence are rampant. The books were published between 1987 and 1992. I read them between November 23rd of 2024 and January the 1st of this year. Let's have a closer look at each installment, starting with Daughter of the Empire. This book was published in 1987 and it is the smallest in the series with 528 pages in this edition. The story is about Mara of the Akoma, a young girl who at the age of 17 is about to be ordained into the order of Lashima, goddess of the inner light. A servant of her house interrupts the ceremony, bringing news of the death of her brother Lanokota and father Sezu. Through treachery by the lord of the Minwanabi, they were killed in the war on the world of the barbarians on Midkemia. This leaves her as the sole heir of the Akoma estate. From that moment on, the reluctant and inexperienced Mara must navigate the perilous landscape of Tsurani politics with intrigue, deception, and betrayal, to secure her family's position and to ensure its survival. I did not ask to be ruling lady. Until a week ago, I was to be a sister of Lashima, all I wished for in this life. But although she is inexperienced, it very soon becomes clear that she is not without spunk. After having survived an assassination attempt on her life, she says, "I may seem like a Gazan to the lord of the Minwanabi, but now he has taught this eater of flowers to grow teeth for meat." Mara turns out to be extremely resourceful, and she's able to think outside of the tradition and customs. She outwits many of her peers and manages to not only keep her house alive, but to strengthen her position significantly. It's very amusing to read how she, with her cleverness and brutality, slips past all kinds of danger. She turns out to be an excellent player of the so-called Game of the Council. In this extremely serious game, all important families in the Empire compete for power. From this scary and grieving daughter, Mara develops into a shrewd and worthy adversary. Continuously, her resolve, intelligence, and moral compass are put to the test. Her loyal army leader, Keioke, and the enigmatic spy, Arakazi, bring much depth and amusement to the story. After her first real victory in the Game of the Council, she had tasted her first victory in the Game of the Council, and the experience whetted her wits, left her yearning for something more and greater. For the first time in life she understood why the great lords strove and even died for the chance to gain in honor. This particular insight will evolve strongly throughout the trilogy, which is exactly why this is such a wonderful series. The stakes are changing along the way and develop from survival to lustful power into something of much greater significance. The relationship between Mara and her servants changes well. Nakoya is her old nurse, the one who mothered her as her real mother had died in birth. Nakoya is referred to as Mother of my Heart. She used to chide Mara when she needed correcting, and still Nakoya speaks harshly to Mara. But Mara is now the lady of the house, and she lets Nakoya know how things have changed. Mother of my heart, of all who serve me, you are most loved. Then her eyes narrowed, and fire returned to her words. But never forget for an instant that you serve me. Touch me like that. Address me in such a manner again, Nakoya, ever, and I will have you beaten like a kitchen slave. Do you understand? Nakoya asks Mara for forgiveness, to which Mara says, "Oldest and dearest companion, fate has changed our roles. Only days ago I was novitiate in the temple, and you were my teacher and mother. Now I must rule over you, even as my father did. You serve me best by sharing your great wisdom, but in the end, I alone must choose which path to follow." There are many strong and beautiful scenes, like this one, that show the reader Mara's feistiness. One of the most impressive species in Calawan are the choya. They are a blend of humans and insects, and they live in hives and are ruled by a queen who mothers all choya. So their lives are very similar to that of bees in our world. Only the choya are bigger than human size, and most of them are intelligent. At the heart, the story of Daughter of the Empire is about the political intrigue and Mara's quest to safeguard her family's future. In order to achieve this, she has to navigate alliances in perilous circumstances. She has to outmaneuver rivals, and all the time she has to make difficult decisions that often blur the line between right and wrong. When, for instance, she has achieved a great victory at the cost of someone's life, it says, "Mara felt pain within. When she should feel triumph, she instead knew grief." The shock of the realities of the stakes she had manipulated left her shaken, unbalanced, and confused. The prose in these books is beautiful, although the poetic side doesn't reach the surface very often. but when it does, it is astounding. During a conversation with her master spy, Arakazi, Mara realizes that she cannot let herself be paralyzed by fear. Fatigue could not be permitted to fan the embers of unfounded fears. When someone reads a letter which contains very, very bad news, it says, "The paper seemed too light to carry the news," he read. Many of the dialogues are powerful and sharp, especially when characters interact at the peaks of their political prowess. And the endgame of this novel is highly entertaining and brings the story to an apotheotic close. Also, the pacing of the novel is well balanced, with moments of intense action interspersed with quieter, introspective scenes that provide insight into the characters' inner lives. I highly enjoyed reading this book, which I rated with 89 points out of 100. The second book in the Empire Trilogy by Raymond E. Feist and Janny Wurts, Servant of the Empire, continues where Daughter of the Empire left off. I particularly love the clash of cultures in the dialogues between Kevin of Zoon from Midkemia and Mara. He was taken captive during the Rift War and is slave to Mara. She wonders why he hasn't fallen on his sword in ritual suicide, which is common practice for warriors who have lost their battle. To which Kevin responds, "Fall on my sword? Why? I don't need my king's permission to sanction what seems an act of total idiocy. Why would I think about killing myself?" Without thought, Mara blurted, "For honor!" Kevin laughed bitterly. What good is honor to a dead man? Mara blinked as if struck by harsh lights in a dark room. Honor is everything. It is what makes living endurable. It gives purpose to everything. What else is there to live for? Kevin threw up his hands in exasperation. Why, to enjoy life, to know the company of friends, to serve men you admire, in this case, to escape and go home again. What else? This early dialogue between Kevin and Mara marks the beginning of their cultural clashes throughout the book, which will lead to many insights and changes on the part of the Tsurani noble lady. Kevin's outsider perspective provides her with a fresh lens through which to view her Tsurani society. The intrigue and Mara's ingenious abilities to navigate the treacherous waters of Tsurani politics in order to save her family from oblivion continue in this second book. We are witness to Mara's transformation from a young, inexperienced leader to a shrewd and formidable force in the political arena. But in the meantime, other things are stirring, which carry the story to a deeper level. It takes time, but gradually Mara comes to see that the barbarian world Kevin comes from perhaps is not so barbarian after all. But before this truly dawns on her, many disputes between the two take place, like when she tells him he is her property. No, you're captive. Nothing more, never anything more. When things come to a real clash, Kevin attacks Mara and threatens to break her neck. You call me honorless slave and barbarian, and yet I am neither. After Kevin has let her go, he says, "No matter what you do to my body, my soul and heart are free. Remember that I allowed you to kill me. I permitted you to live because my honor required it." After this incident, Mara understands. He might have snapped her neck as easily as that of a snared songbird, and instead he had maintained honor as he understood it. The relationship between lady and slave develops in a thought-provoking way and is one of the most beautiful and delightful parts of this book. The two keep debating about their cultural differences, which is food for thought for Mara. Kevin's presence in Mara's life forces her to question her beliefs and traditions, leading to a deeper understanding of herself and her society. To me, the slave versus freedom theme throughout the book is excellently explored and illustrated. One of the highlights of this book to me were the references to and appearances of Pug, who is the main protagonist in the Rift War saga. Before he truly appears and changes the turn of events in a huge way, the reader is alluded several times to his presence in this story as well. The middle of the book is somewhat of a slog, although it reads easily. The many family names that play a part in the game of the council can be overwhelming and disorienting at times. The slowness of this story changes into a fast-paced and intriguing roller coaster ride at chapter 15, page 407 in my edition. This is where events coincide with the story of Magician Master, chapter 11, or page 330 in my edition. The same impressive actions of Milamba, the magician name of Pug, take place here, almost to a word. The authors expertly retell this sequence from a completely different viewpoint, of course. At some point in the story, Mara receives a suitor at her estate. Other than her first husband, who, as we have read in the first book, was coarse and abusive, this man is gentle and kind. After his proposal to her and her hesitancy, he says, "Lady, whatever you decide, do not fear for my feelings in the matter. I love you with all honor, but also love you for yourself. Seek your own happiness, Lady Mara. I am man enough to find my own." I love the choice of words here and the delicate and courtly way of speaking. Apart from a few gripping and exciting scenes, this book, all in all, is slower paced than the first. This may be because certain events that needed to coincide with those in the Rift War saga took more time. The dialogue is sharp and authentic, capturing the nuances of political maneuvering and personal interactions. The ending of this second book, again, is great. The final 50 pages really put me on the edge of my seat, like in the first book. I gave Servant of the Empire 88 points out of 100, 1 point less than the first book in the series. Again, in Mistress of the Empire, the third book, the story continues where Servant of the Empire left off. In portraying Mara's evolution from a young, naive girl to a formidable leader, the authors do not shy away from depicting the harsh realities of her world. Two extremely traumatic events at the end of the second book plummet Mara into grief and despair. Still, she has to continue to navigate the treacherous political landscape of the Turani Empire. Events in the previous two books have made her and her family more powerful than ever, but that doesn't mean she is safe from the threats and plots of her enemies. The second chapter of this book describes the funeral of someone very dear to Mara. On top of that, another person very dear to her has left for the world of Midkemia. The rituals of the funeral are so masterfully told that I could feel the overwhelming grief and devastation inside of Mara myself. Her utter loneliness emphasizes how completely nonsensical the game of the council actually is. If I rated chapters separately, this chapter, number 2, would score 100 points out of 100. In this book, again, there is a lead role for Arakazi, Mara's master spy. He manages to pull off a virtually impossible task, which greatly helps Mara. This is one of the most engaging action chapters of the book. But the final assignment for Mara is no less folly. It turns out that the Assembly of Magicians plays a much bigger role in Turani society than many were led to believe. Although in hindsight one could say, yes, of course, why didn't I think of that before? But the great ones, as they are called, are above the law, untouchable and extremely powerful. It's practically impossible to penetrate their bastion. The stakes are higher than ever, and it is up to Mara to achieve the impossible. Many characters in this book are interesting. Chumaka is one of them. He is the first advisor of Mara's enemy, and he is the first of the antagonists to show restraint. Most of the bad guys so far were extremely arrogant and too sure of their future victories. Chumaka is very cautious in underestimating his adversaries, which makes him one of the more interesting characters in this book. To his lord he says about Mara, "I will seek her destruction with all my heart, but I will proceed calmly, for to let anger cloud judgment is not mere foolish. With Mara, it is suicide." The times when Mara visits the Choya are highlights every time in the first, second, and third book. This otherworldly society, where the hive is everything, gives us much to think about. When Mara visits the queen of the hive that is on her estate, she says that she seeks the queen's wisdom. To which the queen replies, "Many of your concepts are unknowable to us, Lady of the Acoma. This you name wisdom is such a thing. Your human tonalities indicate an idea handed down from a past generation to a mind of less life experience. Forgive me, I do not wish to imply that our kind are in any way superior to yours, but our consciousness is not isolated. The hive mind we share, by your terms, would span millennia. To us, your perspective is fleeting, tied as it is to the duration of one human life. Insomuch as we Choya can share a thing outside our understanding, we shall seek to give our aid." Also, the Choya appear to be of much greater importance than anybody could have guessed. In this final book, Pug again makes an appearance. It is so much fun to see the lead character of another series again in a completely different setting. The role of women in this male-dominated society is beautifully illustrated, and with much humour, when Mara visits a tribe in the unexplored lands outside of the Empire. The interaction between the chieftain, Hotaba, and his wife, Mirana, is highly educational and funny. During their meeting, Mirana continuously interjects, which infuriates Hotaba, who threatens his wife to have her stewed and thrown to the carrion birds or worse. But appearances are not what they seem. Mirana explains this to Mara. "I will tell you what else we do here besides pretending to take the jiggerbird crowing of our men very seriously. Hotaba, he's a windbag, but I love him. He's been threatening to beat me to silence for 42 years. He hasn't laid a hand on me in anger yet. We are a people for great threats and insults, Mara. Boasting is an art here, and a well-fashioned insult will earn the slighted man's admiration rather than scorn. Compare that to the honor-driven killing sprees within the empire of Tsuranwani. Arakazi is hit by love for the first time in his life. He understands immediately that this will interfere with his work as master spy. The object of his love cannot understand why a man of such high standing should love a girl of such a low station. She tells Mara she cannot possibly give Arakazi what he no doubt will demand. To which Mara says, "Love doesn't demand, it accepts." One of the most beautiful lines of this book. The final 300 pages I could not stop reading anymore. The changes that take place within Mara do not restrict themselves to her alone. Her former force commander, Keioki, who has served Mara for more than 40 years, says at one point to his lady, "You have taught me the true meaning of a warrior's creed. Any man can die fighting enemies, but the real test of honor for a man is to live and learn to love himself." Now that's wisdom. When Mara's antagonist in this story gets hurt during a fight, he completely loses his cool. Never in his pampered adult life had he endured pain, and its kiss stole his reason. That's what I call beautiful prose. The end of this miraculous book treads paths that have not been tread before in the trilogy. The stakes have become more epic in scope and are elevated high above the petty politics and war games of humans. An apt illustration of this are these words of Arakasi the spy master at the end of the book. Once I was spy master for the Yakoma. Now I've discovered that life and nature hold secrets more profound than intrigues fashioned by men. This is what makes this such an exceptionally good trilogy. With each book, the themes are stacked on top of each other to become this greater theme. To stay clear of spoilers, I cannot go into this any further, but to me, this development clearly proves the supreme mastership of both these writers and plotters. In the end, in my eye, the story is about the fact that we humans are empathic beings, but that many outward forces drive us away from that empathy for all life around us. In this beautiful narration, the characters, despite all odds, try to find their way back to who we really are as a species. Mistress of the Empire is a more than fitting conclusion to the Empire Trilogy. The book offers a satisfying and poignant resolution to Mara's journey. I gave this book 93 points out of 100. As mentioned earlier, the world building in all three books is exquisite. There is so much solid background which makes this a believable world. For instance, I love the way the authors picture some of the age-old traditions on Kelawan. Like when someone of importance has died, the body is laid on a pyre for burning. During the ceremony, his or her deeds in life are recounted. Just before the pyre is set on fire, the priest slashes the red cord that binds the hands of the deceased. This symbolic ritual indicates the setting free of the spirit for rebirth. I love that. With the Empire Trilogy, Raymond E. Feist and Janny Wurts have crafted a story that is both epic in scope and intimate in its emotional depth. The novel's exploration of power, loyalty, and cultural clash resonates on multiple levels, making it a thought-provoking and memorable read. The legacy of Mara of the Yakoma is one of resilience, ingenuity, and unyielding determination, making her an unforgettable heroine within the fantasy genre. I can highly recommend these three books to anyone interested in the best of fantasy. Thank you very much for watching this video. Until we meet again at Dutch Greybeard.